did not see a jackfruit plantation. Of course, we did not spend much time there looking in details. We were scared, and I did not notice whether the area was a jackfruit plantation. Question: did you ever, or had you previously been to the area that you said you saw the pit? Answer: yes, I had. Question: and if so, did you ever observe that there was any jackfruit plantation nearby? Answer: I did not think of any jackfruit plantation. Question: now I refer to a security guard named Ui, whom you said that he used to consume gallbladder. My question to you is that did you hear that directly from him, or were you told by someone else? Answer: he came to have his meal at the kitchen, and he said that he used to drain human gallbladder, and I heard that directly from him. And after he left, some other women also said that the Oi used to drink human gallbladder. Question: and when you said you heard him saying that, did he tell someone in particular, or did he tell everyone about that? Answer: of course, he did not tell every one of us about that. He only spoke through his other security guards about that. It seems like they chit-chatted amongst themselves, and he said that he used to drink human gallbladder. Question: did you see he always remaining there until the time of the arrival of the Vietnamese, or at any point he disappeared from the center? Answer: when the Vietnamese arrived, I did not see the Oi, but I saw another guard. Question: how many months did you last see the Oi before the arrival of the Vietnamese? Answer: the situation was rather confusing when the Vietnamese arrived, and I did not see him at that time. Thank you, Madam Witness and Mr. President. I conclude my session. President, thank you. The floor is now given to the defense team for Kieu Sampon. Kung Samon, thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, parties, and good morning, Madam Witness. I'd like to put some questions to you in relation to your work. I have heard through your testimonies that you're involved in a certain task, and I'd like to focus on your task while you were at the Okansang Re-Education Center. Upon your first arrival at Okansang Center, and that you said that you picked vegetables to provide to those people in the center. How long did you do that work? Answer. Upon my arrival, I was not allowed to go and pick vegetable. In fact, I was detained in that building, and only later on, when they believed that I would not flee, and that is after I delivered my baby, I was allowed to work outside and to pick a vegetable. So when I arrived there, they observed me closely, and when they trusted me and believed that I would not flee, then they allowed me to engage in some outside activities, including picking vegetable. Question. From my recollection, you testifies that you were detained at the building in Open Science Center for a night, and then you were transferred to another building where it was not locked. So my question to you is this: besides the first night that you were detained in the building which was locked, how long did you spend in other buildings or another building? Answer. After I was transferred from that one night locked building, I spent a couple of months in another building. Question. Would it be possible for you to describe the location where you lived after you was transferred from that one night building? And please try to illustrate the location of that building. For example, it was to the east or to the west of the interrogation room. Answer. When I arrived, I was placed in that detention building. It was like a hut with a locked door. And after that, I was transferred to another hut or building, which was a long building, and it was a roof with proton and bamboo leaves, and we were detained in that building. Question. When you said we, can you tell the chamber, you mean your group or all the prisoners in the center were detained in that building? Answer. I refer to those 2 or 3 families who were brought in together with my family. We all stayed together in that building. Question. From my recollection, those people who left the rubber plantation with you were 3 families, including yours, and that there were husband and wives within each family. And you said that the members of the 3 families were in that long building together. And beside your group, Were there other people also resided in that long building? And there were a group of Charai people, and there were other people, and I did not know where they were from. However, I was close only to those 2 or 3 families which were brought in together. Question. And besides the other 2 families who were brought in from the rubber plantation, did you get to know other detainees? And so I cannot recall those people. They were brought in from somewhere and they were detained there too. Question. Do you recall how many people all together in that long building? That is a rough estimate or an average of the number of people there? Answer. In that long building, there were 3 or 4 other people or women who were brought in from somewhere else, and I did not know them. Question. And while you were in that long building, what kind of work was assigned to you? And what about other women who were detained in that long building? Were they assigned to carry out any specific task? And we were given a different task. Some were sent to remove grass, some were sent to the forest to cut the wood, while others were sent to pick vegetable. Question. And for you yourself, what task was assigned to you? Answer. I was tasked to pick vegetable or to work in the kitchen. Question. Can you clarify that you only slept during the night time in that long building while you worked during the daytime, either picking vegetable or working in the kitchen? Is that correct? Answer. Yes, it is. Question. Did you also spend some time resting in the long building during the daytime, or you only came to the building to sleep at night? Answer. I slept there during the night time, and during the daytime I went to work. Question. In your previous statement, you said that long building was about 30 meters away from the interrogation room, and later on you said that it could be about 20 meters. Do you recall that? Answer. As I have said, I find it difficult to give an estimate distance. So I cannot say whether that the estimates that I provided is a proper one. I cannot tell you the distance or the length in kilometers, My concern at the time was that if I wake up in the morning, then I knew that I am alive. That was constantly in my mind, and I did not think of the distance or anything else. And as I said, an estimation is just an estimation. It cannot be accurate. So what I said is that it was about 20 to 30 meters. Counsel, thank you. Yes, I understand that. And my next question is that did you move to live in another building, or did you remain living in that long building from the time that you were sent there until the day the Vietnamese arrived? Answer: I remained living in that building until the day the Vietnamese arrived. I was not moved to another building. Question: you have mentioned that you were tasked to work in the kitchen or to pick a vegetable, and you also recall that that happened after your baby delivery. So, did you remain working in the kitchen or pick a vegetable, and you were not given any other task while you were detained there? Answer: after I delivered my baby, I was assigned to work in the kitchen to pick vegetable, and sometimes I was sent to solder carry wood from the forest. And that was hard work. Question: last week you also testified in relation to soldier carrying wood planks, and that the distance from the forest to the center was similar to the distance from the main road to this courtroom. Can you tell the chamber how many times or how long were you assigned to carry wood planks? Answer: whenever they wanted to build a building, we would be tasked to go and solder carry wood planks. And we did that for about 4 to 10 days, and later on we were assigned a separate task. So it varied. Maybe one day when we woke up, we were tasked to carry wood planks, and next day we would be asked to carry a log, and another time we would be tasked to carry different things. Some works were hard, some others were light. As for the distance from where I picked up the wood planks and carried it, it was like from the main road to this courtroom. From your perception, it might be short, but there was no direct road at the time. We had to walk through rough, patchy road and bushes. We had to make a detour sometimes, and it was so difficult. បាទសូមអរគុណ
Lawyer, thank you. What I could recall is that you stated that you did that shoulder carrying of wood for 10 days. Were buildings completely built at that time when you were asked to shoulder wood planks or logs? Answer. The buildings were not completely built. The older buildings were demolished partially and refurbished. I was asked to carry wood planks and logs, so I was focusing on my work. I was afraid at that time. As I said, I bothered to care of my life, so I was doing my best to work. So I can only tell what I know from my experience. Lawyer, thank you. Did you do other work besides being a worker in the kitchen, picking up vegetables and shouldering woods? Answer, no. I did not have any other task to perform. Lawyer, thank you. I have another question in relation to your statement. You said a woman told you that her husband was tortured. Can you tell the court when you were told about that incident? In which month and year were you told of that incident? Answer, I do not recall that. I do not recall the month and the year. Lawyer, thank you. That woman told you that her husband became weak, and it was perhaps her husband had been tortured. So when did she tell you about that? President, please hold on. Madame Witness, you have the floor now, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. My memory of the witness's testimony is that she said that multiple women told her that their husbands had been tortured. So I think counsel is unduly limiting her evidence by referring to just a single woman. And I think that risks changing the evidence. So I would just ask that he be more specific about which incident he's talking about.
បាទក្នុង
Kung Samon, I am trying to clarify this point with the witness. Madam Witness, how many women told you that their husbands were tortured? Answer. Women from 2 or 3 families who were detained with me were questioned one after another. First, women were questioned and then the men. After the women had been questioned and then it was the time for the men, the women was worrying about their husband, and later on they said that perhaps their husband may have been tortured and electrocuted. So they discussed this matter to one another. Normally, people who were healthy could walk very steadily, but we could assume that some people may have been tortured and beaten because we noticed them that they could not walk very steadily. That is why those women made mention about this kind of things to me. Lawyer, my question wanted to know the specific numbers of women who had told you about the fact that their husband had been tortured. So how many of them came to tell you that their husband had been tortured? Answer, one woman talked to me about that, not many of them. And that woman said that she discussed with other women that their husband may have been tortured, and she came to tell me about that. Normally, the husbands of those women received the same fate. Male detainees were mistreated. Lawyer, thank you. Where did she come to tell you about that incident? Answer, she told me in the building where we slept. Lawyer, when? At what specific time did she tell you about that? Answer, it was around 3 or 4, said the witness. The interrogation happened in the morning and lasted until 3 or 4, at which she told me about the incident, and that woman's husband was so weak. Seeing that, she told me about the fact that perhaps her husband had been tortured. Question. So she came to tell you after the interrogation of her husband, and perhaps it was after the time when you returned back from work. Is that true? Answer, I did not go out to work. On that day, everyone was in the building. We were not allowed to go out to work because it was the interrogation day. Men were interrogated after the woman. So at that time, we were not trusted yet. We were told to stay at one particular place, that is in the building. Lawyer, thank you. Now I want to ask you about Jarai people. You told the court that you saw Jarai people, men and women, and children coming into your building. Which building did you discuss when you told the court about that? Witness, could you clarify your question to me? I am not quite sure. Lawyer, I want you to make a clarification in relation to Jarai people. Perhaps 20 of them were brought into your building. Which building are you referring to? Are you referring to the building where you slept at night? Answer, yes, it is. Question. You indicated that Jarai people were tied to a long string together, and after they arrived at the building, were the string untied? Was the string untied, rather? Answer. After they arrived in the building, the string was not untied yet at that time. Question. And when was the string untied, or did they remain in that string while detained in that building? Answer. It was a while after those Jarai people were trusted. It was the same case as me when I arrived in the building. It was after a while, and after they were trusted, that those women, Jarai women, could not make an escape, then the string was untied. Lawyer. So how long did they remain tied in that string? Answer. I do not know how many days they remain in that string. Most of the time I went out to work, and I did not know how long they remained in that string. Lawyer. Thank you. Do you recall how many times Jarai people were brought into that building while you were detained at Organ Sang Security Center? Answer. I witnessed only one time of bringing those Jarai people in. Lawyer. Thank you. I want to ask you about the reason. What made you remember that those Jarai people, perhaps 20 of them, were tied to a string and sent into the building? Last week you made a mention about the language of those Jarai people in addition to the language which you could recognize. So what made you believe that those people were Jarai? Answer. I had been living in Ratanakiri province, so I could recognize language of Tumpuan and Jarai. Their languages were distinct from one another. So when those people were brought into that building, I could know very well that those people were Jarai. Lawyer. Do you know Jarai language? Answer. I do not know how to speak Jarai's language. Question. Did you at the time talk to those Jarai people to make sure that they were Jarai? Answer. I did not have any relation with them, but I could be sure that they were Jarai, since I knew their language. I could recognize their language, particularly the languages of Jarai, Tumpuan, and Kajok. Lawyer. Thank you. So can you tell the court about the Jarai people when they were brought into the building? How long were they detained in that center? Answer. They were detained in the center for not long. Lawyer. Thank you. While you stayed and lived in the building with those Jarai people, and you told the court earlier that you slept in the building, in the same building with the Jarai people. Was there any distinctive feature that you could recognize that those people were Jarai? For example, was their clothing distinct from that of Khmer? Answer. They slept in one side of the building. So, their clothing was distinctive from our clothing. For example, here you could see that judges were wearing red robes, and you, or the other side, the other side of the table was wearing the purple cloth or robe. So I could recognize from their traditional clothing. Lawyer. Thank you. Did they have the same clothing, or did they wear different types of clothing at the time? Answer. They were in different clothes depending on their families. So their clothes were different from one another because they were from different villages, perhaps, and some were wearing colorful skirts, gray or black skirts, so different types of clothes and different colors of clothes. Lawyer. Thank you. On the same topic regarding Jarai people, did they come with their belonging with them when they were brought into the building? So what kind of stuff did they have with them at the time? Answer. No, they had only one set of clothes at the time. Did they have backpacks with them? No. Answered. Lawyer. Thank you. I want to ask a point for clarification. I heard that the question was put to you about jackfruit plantation. While you were staying in Auckland Security Center, did you happen to overhear about the location named jackfruit plantation, and where was it? President. Please hold on, Madam Witness. You have the floor now. International Lead College for Civil Party. Wait, I heard the question about jackfruit plantation for 3 times, and this is the 4th time that the party asked about the question in relation to jackfruit plantation. So I would like to register my objection to that question. Kong Sam-on. Never mind. If there is an objection from the lead co-lawyer for civil party. So I have another question to put to you, Madam Witness. Could you tell the court about the B-52 crater? Where was it located? The B-52 crater, which were located close to Organized Security Center. Could you tell it to the court? Answer. You want me to describe the length or the dimension of that B-52 crater? In fact, I do not know about the dimension of that crater or pit. Lawyer, thank you. Did you ever go to the pit or B-52 crater, and how many times did you see that crater while you were detained at Organized Security Center? Answer. It was when I was assigned to pick up vegetable or pick up a sweet potato. The crater or pit was deep, and at that time it was not covered with dirt yet. It was the result of a B-52 bombing. Kung Som-on, do you recall when that pit was covered with dirt? Answer. At first, that dirt was not covered with dirt yet, and it was deep, as I said. And on another occasion, after I went to that place for the second time, the dirt was used to cover the pit already. And it was different picture when I saw it for the second time. Lawyer, thank you. Could you clarify this point for the court? How many times did you go to that place seeing the empty pit? Answer. I witnessed or saw that pits from time to time when I was assigned to pick up vegetables, but I did not care to measure how deep the pit was and how long the pit was, but I could know clearly that I could see clearly that the pit was deep rather. So my work picking up vegetable was at a location close to that pit, and I did not know how many times I was assigned to pick up vegetables close to that pit, because I did not bother counting times. So I cannot tell the court how many times I was assigned to go close to that pit picking up vegetables. I did not bother measuring the pit or crater. I bothered only my life. I care much about my life, said witness. A lawyer. From what I heard, you did not go close to that pit or B-52 crater, and you were assigned to pick up vegetables in a location far away from that pit. So did you at any point in time go close to the pit? And how long were you from that pit when you were assigned to go pick vegetables to that pit? Answer: I do not know how far I was from the pit when I was assigned to pick vegetable close to the pit. So, it was the same as the distance from this courtroom to another building, for example. I could compare that. And when I was assigned to pick up vegetable, I glanced at that pit so I could see it from my location. So I did not dare to step, close to the pit or step to the feel smell the decomposing body, and I was afraid of ghosts, as I said at the time. Lawyer: you stated that at one time you saw the empty pit. The dirt was not covered yet at that pit. Now I would like to ask you about the surrounding area of that crater or pit. Was there any landmark for you to recognize that the pit was the same as the one you saw later on? Answer: the pit at one time was deep, and at another time it was covered with dirt, and it was like a hill later on. So what I could tell you is that at one time the pit was deep, and that empty pit, and then on another occasion that pit was covered with dirt. Lawyer: my question that I put to you is to ask about the landmark close to that pit. Was there a termite mound close to that pit, or were there tall trees recognizable to you? And what made you recognize that that was the same pit as the one that you had seen before? Was there any landmark or specific feature that you could recognize? Answer: nothing. No specific feature that I could recognize. Surrounding the pit was the forest.
ให้ตามตัวลง
And then there were potato trees.
បាទលោកស្រី
Question. So please elaborate a bit further. You have there were forests in the surrounding area, and then there were potato plants. Can you, for example, try to think how far was the forest from the pit? And was there anything of significance of the forest, whether it was crowded forest or it was bushes, or there were bushes in the area? Answer. If you looked from a distance, you could see thick forest, and of course you could not identify which trees were in the forest, and in other parts there were bushes. And in the forest there were larger trees. Question. So you just said that surrounding the pit was a forest. Part of it were thick, while others were bushes. Could you try to tell the chamber whether the trees that you saw were wild trees or whether they were trees planted by people? Answer. We could actually pick some fruits from some of those trees. However, I could not tell you what kind of trees there were in that forest. As I said, the distance was from, I could see the forest. I could not distinguish the kinds of trees in the forest. It's like when you stand afar and looked at a village. And part of the area was a plantation, while there were some bushes in the area as well. If you ask me to try to give a rough estimate of the area, this is what I can say, so I cannot say that it is accurate. Question. You spoke about potato plants in the area. What kind of a potato was it, and how far was it from the pit? I believe that the potato plants were grown by detainees from O Consign Center because there were no villagers living nearby. And as I said, near the vicinity of the pit, there were potato plants, cadeo trees, and some other trees. For cadeo trees, you can actually pick and cook the leaves. Question. Please try to tell us what kind of potato plants they were. It might be say đầm lồng chơ or cassava. Question. Can you tell us how tall were the cassava plants? Answer. It is very difficult for me to tell you, and if you know cassava trees or cassava plants, then you would know how tall they grow. My question is in relation to the height and the size of the cassava plants. For example, were those cassava plants as tall as your height? Answer. They were higher than my height. Question. And how many of them? Of course, when people planted cassava, they would plant many of them. So there were many. And if you grow, for example, behind your house, then you might grow a few only. Question. Can you tell us the location of the cassava plants in relation to the pit? Whether it was to the east, to the west, or to the north of the pit? Answer, I did not think of where it was in relation to the pit. What I could tell you is that there were cassava plants and there were trees near the vicinity, within the vicinity of the pit. Question. You said that you later saw the B-52 bomb crater was covered with dirt. What made you to conclude that the pit that you saw, which was empty, and the pit that you saw with dirt covered was the same pit? Answer. There was only one pit. When I first saw it, it was just deep and not covered. And when I saw it again, it was covered with dirt. What else do you want me to say? Question. Maybe you can try to recall the trees that were near the pit that was empty, and later on you saw the pit with dirt covered. Were the same trees in the area? Answer. When I first saw the pit, there were no cassava plants nearby, and only later on the cassava tree plants were grown. Question. So when you first saw the pit, there were no cassava plants nearby, and you said later on when you saw a pit covered with dirt, you saw cassava plants near it. Is that correct? Later on, when I saw the pit which was covered with dirt, I also saw cassava plants. Question. Can you tell the chamber whether the cassava plants that you saw, were they planted in rows of beds, or were they just planted randomly? Answer. Allow me to clarify it for one more time. The potato plants were to the left of the pit, and when you looked further you would see dense forest, and when you looked to the back you would see bushes. And cassava plants were grown a bit far from the pit. It was similar to the way that you plant cassavas behind your backyard. So I could identify that the cassava plants were to the left of the pit, and it was not at the rim of the pit but a bit far from the pit. Question. My question to you is that whether you saw those cassava plants were grown in rows, or were they planted randomly? Answer. I cannot recall whether they were planted in rows or whether dirt was raised to make beds to plant those cassava plants. I cannot tell you any more about that. President Council, your time has run out. President, Madam Mung Chandi, the Chamber is grateful of your testimony, and the hearing of your testimony as a witness is now concluded, and it may contribute to ascertaining the truth in this case. Your presence here is no longer required, and you may return to your home or wherever you wish to return to. The Chamber wishes you all the very best. And Madam Solida, the TPO staff, the Chamber would like to thank you for your support given to this witness during her testimony based on her request. You may also be excused. Court officer, please collaborate with the vessel and make a transport arrangement for Madame Chandi to return to her home or wherever she wishes to go to. And the Chamber would like to inform the Chamber, the parties, that after the conclusion of this witness testimony, the Chamber will hear oral submissions in relation to the request by the two defense to submit certain documents so that they can use to question the expert through TCE 88. It is now convenient for a short break, and we'll take a break now and resume at 10:30. The court is now in recess.